Well, hey guys, Long Haul Larry, and out here in the ADL shop working on this here black truck. And I've gotten pretty much things buttoned up. I'm still working on a bunch of little projects and stuff, but have gotten the truck fired. The most craziest thing is we finally got the transmission all put back in there and everything else, and then went to start it and check everything out and hit the starter, the key, turn the key, and me and the other mechanic both heard like a, and we were like, what was that? It sounded like it was over at the driver's side on the outside of the truck. It sounded like a fuse blew, like something blew. And the truck would just not start. And we went all around, and it just so happened that the starter blew. And I was just like, really? So I actually took the starter out of the white truck. I had it out already from tearing it down, and we popped that same starter, and we popped that one in, and now it starts up and runs fine. But one of the things on the board to do was to clear the codes in the truck. So I hooked up the computer to it, and a lot of the codes are gone that were on there, that we cleared them, and a lot of them stayed away, but there was a couple that came back. And one of them is a misfire on number 2 cylinder, which, if you look at causes of that, can be a miss valve adjustment. So it could be the valves could not be adjusted correctly. And the other thing is we're maybe thinking wiring too. There's a wire harness up there for the injectors. We're thinking maybe that too. The guy that did this truck, when he tore this truck, when he took the motor out, there was actually brand new wire harness. We just put those in not even a week before it blew up. So, and he actually put them in the side box of this truck. So we have those here, and they're brand spanking new. So I'm going to replace those wires, but another cause of it can be valve adjustment. So if we're going to go into it, might as well just do it. The boss is selling this truck, I believe. I guess there's a couple people interested in it. And if we're going to do it, we're going to sell it. We want to feel good about it. So I'm going to just do a valve adjustment. So I thought I'll go over this real quick. It's really not that difficult. If you have a Freightliner or the DD15, it's really not that difficult. You can do it. A 6mm Allen wrench, 17mm wrench, some feeler gauges, and you can do this. You do need a special tool to bar the engine over, and you have to find a special spot on the flywheel that marks the top dead center of number 1 and number 6. And you need that tool, which is, it's not very expensive. And then there's also a pin that slides into the flywheel, and you need that too. But otherwise than that, it's really not a lot of tools. So anybody can do this. So the first thing I do is take out the valve cover. So you got to take the air box off and everything else and get the valve cover off. Done that already. And then the next thing is you need to find top dead center for number 1, number 6. And you go underneath and you take a little top plate out the flywheel, the bell housing, and you can see the flywheel. And you just spin the flywheel around, and you're going to find one little slot that has a little hole, a little dimple in it. And you need to line it up. In fact, I'm going to go down there and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. So right here is where the cover is. It's just a little plate that goes over with 2 bolts, and you pull that off. And then you can see it's kind of rusty. You can kind of see that up inside there. That's the flywheel, and it has all these little grooves in it. And one of those grooves will have a little indentation in it, a little dot. And you're going to spin around and go, oh, I think that's the dot. And you just take, the best way to find out is take like a flat bladed screwdriver and just kind of scrape over that little indentation. So you just kind of, let's see if I can get the light right. So you just kind of go in there and just scrape over it. And sometimes it may look like a dot, but it's not. When you see it, you're going to go, oh, there it is. And then what you want to do, trying to shine the light, trying to get all this in right here. Yeah, I can use my headlamp. I think that will work better. But there's a little groove on this side over here on the bell housing. There's like a little groove in there, and that needs to line up with that dot. And when you get to that point, then what you do is this is that special tool you need for barring over the engine. You just put a short little, like a 6-inch extension onto it with a 1/2-inch ratchet. And as you're turning that over here is a flywheel sensor. It's on this side. And this is a wire for it. And this is the sensor. Okay? And you just pull this sensor out. You just slip that out. And then there's a special tool right here. And this slides into place, and that little tip on there will slide into a groove on the flywheel. And that locks it in to top dead center. So right there. So let's see if I can show it to you guys here. So if I turn the engine back just a little bit. So I'm going to turn it back so it's not top dead center. Okay, so now we're good. So all you do is when you find that dot, you're getting it close, then just push your finger on here and start to ratchet the engine off, and you're going to feel it go click. Boom, right there it is. Now that's top dead center. Now there's 2 different phases we have to do this in. It's either top dead center for piston 1 or top dead center for piston 6. And you kind of go in 2 different, I don't know how to say this, 2 different paths, 2 different sequences. And I'll go up there and I'll show you how you can figure out which one you're on. All right, guys, so now we're up on top. So now we need to see which cycle we're on. So we're either top dead center for the start our adjustments on either 1 or 6. And the easy way to figure this out is you just grab your rockers here and you just pull on them. Hear that? Intake and exhaust are loose. We go back to number 6 and we grab them. They're not loose. So that means we are on the first revolution. Okay? So the first cycle we're going to do, and there is a pattern that you're going to do this in. And on the first, so you're going to do this in 2 revolutions of the flywheel. So now we're going to start on the first revolution. It does not matter what you start. If you have it started and number 6 is loose, but number 1 is tight, you're just going to do this in the opposite order. That's all you're going to do. It's not that difficult. So what we're going to do is we're going to adjust the intake and exhaust on number 1. Okay? Then we're going to go number 2 intake. We're going to adjust this one, but we're not going to adjust the exhaust. Then on number 3, we're going to adjust the exhaust, but we're not going to adjust the intake. Number 4, we're going to adjust the intake, but not the exhaust. And then on number 5, we're going to adjust the exhaust. We're not going to adjust the intake on the number 5. And then back on 6, we're not going to adjust either one of these. And that completes our revolution. Then you go down and you bar the engine over all the way around 1 revolution till you get that little pin again where you're top dead center. And when you come back up here, number 1 will be tight and number 6 will be loose. So then we're going to go back, and what we're going to do is we're going to start all over again. We already did number 2 intake on the other revolution. So now we're going to do number 2 on the exhaust. Then we're going to skip number 3 exhaust, do 3 intake. Sorry, I had a burp there or something. Then we're going to skip the number 4 intake, do 4 exhaust. Then we're going to skip number 5 exhaust, do 5 intake. And then we're going to do intake and exhaust on number 6. That's how the pattern goes. That's how you do that. What kind of tools that you're going to need to know, we're going to need to have. I like to have a ratchet with a number 17 millimeter socket to loosen them. It's a little bit easier to loosen them up that way. Then you're also going to need a 6 millimeter Allen wrench. I like to have one with a T-handle because this is when you're going to adjust it. It makes it so you can control it a little bit better. You're also going to need 2 feeler gauges. And I like to have the ones where the tips are bent up like this. It's easier to get up underneath there. And to adjust the intake side, you're going to have a 4 millimeter or a 0.16 inch feeler gauge. To do the exhaust side, you're going to need a 6 millimeter and a 0.024 inch feeler gauge. Okay? And the thing is that how tight and how loose and everything, you just kind of want them to go underneath there, and you want to feel a good resistance where it has drag on it, but you don't want it to be loose, and you don't want it to be too tight that you can't get it out. And the thing is you want to adjust them all the same. That's the thing. That's the key, is that feel you want to have throughout all of them. And that will get you a good running, good sounding engine, a good running engine. Other things that you're going to need is a 17 millimeter wrench for when you adjust these. You're going to have this on here, and you're going to have one hand on here. You're going to see me doing it. And I'm going to have it on the nut, and I'm going to be tightening a little bit with the feeler gauge in there. When I get to that point, then I'm going to tighten it down. And then I'll recheck it again, make sure it didn't move. And if it's good to go, then what I will do is take a paint marker, and I will put a mark on each one that it has been done. And that way I can look at it and physically go, did that, did that, did that, did that. It's all done. That's all that's for. And then at the end of it, you need to have a torque wrench. And you need 37 foot-pounds of torque on these nuts after you get them all done. You need a torque man, because if you don't, the driver could be driving on a road and this nut could come loose, and that would be very bad. It could do some very bad damage. It could push a lifter right into the piston, all kinds of problems. So we'll get started. I don't know how long my light's going to last. I have a light on the camera. I didn't have it fully charged. But we will get started. Oh, and then I'll explain the Jake setup. I'm probably not going to record it because the other guy's going to be here to help me with that, because it's really nice to have somebody underneath the engine to help bar the engine, because you got to bar the engine over constantly. But to do the exhaust, these are the exhaust adjustments over here on this side. And it's a like third nut. And what you want to do is, this is a feeler gauge for this one. This is a 4.6. And if you actually look right on your engine, there is different ones, different years. It says right on there, 4.6 millimeter. And so what happens is you have your camshaft down here. And as your camshaft turns, there's a lobe on it. It's a raised lobe on it. That's how camshaft work. It turns and it raises these up and down. You want to go to do, what you want to do is you have to go so that these gears in the back are going towards the passenger side. That's the way they're rotating. And when you get to number 1 lobe, lifts the lifters all the way up to the top, and do not start to drop. There's that little point right there. I always use a dial indicator. I'll put them right on here. As soon as it gets right to that point, that's when you adjust the Jake on number 1. And it's the same thing, 6 millimeter, 17 millimeter nut, loosen up. And then you will stick this here feeler gauge down inside there. And you want to have the same thing. You want to have that drag. And it just needs to be the same going all the way down through. Not so tight that it grabs and holds it, but not so tight that it's loose. It needs to have a little bit of pull on it. And when you get to that point, then you do that. Then you have somebody bar the engine over, and you have to do it in the firing order of the engine. And on these engines, the firing order is 1, 5, 3, 6, 2, 4. So then you're going to do 1, then you're going to have somebody barring it over. And back here at number 5, when the lobes go all the way up and the lifters are at the top, and before they drop, that's where you stop. You adjust that one. Then you're going to do that same thing. You're going to go back to number 3. Then you're going to go back to number 6. Then you're going to go to number 2. Then you're going to go to 4. So that's how you do Jakes. It's really not that difficult. Just takes a little bit of time and patience. And so we are going to get started here. So the first thing I'll do is, well, I guess I could check them. I know they're out of whack. I can feel them. It's pretty easy to feel them, that they're out. So we got a 4 millimeter here. You pull them up and you just slide them underneath here. And I almost forced, I got maybe a quarter of it in. It's not even close. That one I got almost half of it in. Okay, so these are not even close. You can check the exhaust. Okay, exhaust, the exhaust is good. That one is good. That one's good. Gotta fly. That one's a little bit loose. You want them to be all the same. That one slides in real easy. This one has a nice nice grab to it. It's just a nice little pull to it. So that's what you want. So this one is so we're going to adjust them all. We're going to go through and do them all, but just to make sure they're set up right. So we're just going to loosen the two nuts up. First of all, before I get going here, so that my pen marks stick on them, I'm just going to wipe down the oil here. Top of the lifters. Go. So here we go. So I have the wire harness removed here. You don't have to have the wire harness removed. You can do this with the wire harness. It just makes it a little more crowded in there. And I'm also going to be changing the wire harness anyway, so I just pulled it out for kind of for the video. But I'm kind of glad I'm doing that, because the problem that we're having is we have number 2 as a misfire. And look at this. This wire harness is broke, and that is right over number 2. So this is probably the problem. But since we're doing this, since I got this part, do a valve adjustment. It's not that hard. You should be doing this about every 250,000 miles. You should be doing a valve adjustment. So we're gonna put our wrench in there. We're gonna get our feeler gauge in. And then we're just gonna tighten it a little bit. And we wanna get to that. And I'm gonna tell you that it should be like a little bit loose, like that. Because you'll go back and forth a few times. And take your time doing this. You wanna get these right. So we're gonna tighten it. Tighten that jam nut. See, now it's too loose. Okay? That's too sloppy. It's too easy to pull around. Sometimes you got to do this a couple times, and it's going to give it a little bit. Nope, too loose. Let's try that. Okay, there we go. Actually, I'm going to go just a tiny bit tighter. I'm kind of a perfectionist, you know what I mean? And that's kind of a hard thing with this. You want to get them perfect, and it's like, okay. I'm having a moment here. Okay, now I got it even tighter. Ouch. Okay, there we go. That's good. It's just got, it slides underneath there, but it's got drag to it. That's all we're looking for. So now we're going to move on to the intake. The other intake, sorry. Okay, we get the feeler gauge under this one. Somewhere about there we're going to try for. Too loose. Okay, too tight. There we go, right there. Perfect. Okay. We got those done. So now I'm going to move over to the exhaust. Please tell me I used the right one. I think I might have used the wrong one. Nope, I used the right one. I should like paint those or something. This rear exhaust one is actually the hardest one to get to. About right there, we're going to try for. Yeah, there we go. Happy with that one. That's too loose. No, I'm not happy with that one. Okay, that I'm happy with. There we go. Feel much better about that. So now I need to torque it. Go. Digital torque wrench. I don't know, not really a fan. Go. If you really want to get crazy, check them again. Good. Like I said, we're not in any race here. Just want to make sure you do it right. Okay. Okay. Good. So now what I'll do, my marker stuck. So I come back and I'm just going to put a mark on here. These have been done, so I don't get confused or nothing else. There we go. So now we just move on. Just keep moving on if I can get my socket off. My hands are greasy. And which one are we going to do next? Does anybody remember? We're in the first revolution, first cycle, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to go to number 2, intake. I'm not even going to check them. I'm just going to do them. All right, so there we go. So we have 1 revolution done. So now I have to go underneath the truck and do a full revolution of the flywheel to get back to top dead center. And then we'll start over again. We're going to do 2 exhaust, 3 intake, 4 exhaust, 5 intake, and then both the number 6s. And those are the boogers way back there. I just got back. I just cycled turn the flywheel 1 revolution. So now I just come back up. Number 1, tight. Number 6, loose. Exhaust, loose. So now we're on our 2nd revolution. So now I just start going through it and just boom, 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 going along. So we got number 2, exhaust. Well, there you go. So there's a complete valve adjustment. You see, it's not that hard. Just takes a little time. Just got to go slow at it. Make sure you get it correct. That's all you need to do. Just make sure that you get it correct. So now the valves are all adjusted. I need to do the Jake brakes. I've done a video in the past of doing the Jake brakes. You got to turn it over till this goes all the way up. And just before it starts to go back down again. And it's the lobes on the camshaft. As it turns over, the lobes will get all the way up to the top, the pinnacle, and then they start to go down. That's where you stop. And then you adjust this right here. And this one is the, what is it, the 4.6? Yeah, the 4.6 millimeter one. And it's the same way. It's the same kind of thing as the lifters. It goes into here. And you adjust that. And then you have somebody underneath and you bar the thing over. And then you go from 1, 5, 3, 6, 2, and then 4. And that's the firing order of the motor. And you adjust those. And you adjust these all down here as you bar the thing over. As each lobe on that cylinder gets to the top, boom, adjust it. And you have to make sure those gears in the back are turning that way. And then you'll be good to go. So I'm going to let you guys go. I hope this helps out somebody out there. And if they have a question about it or something like that, you can hit me up in the comments and stuff. But it's really not that hard. I've actually done this in a parking lot of a truck stop to another truck. It's really not that hard. So you can do this out in your driveway or so. Say about, I'd do it about every 250,000 miles. I would do an overhead adjustment like this and adjust the valves. Things wear and everything else, and this keeps it all running good and everything else. I will catch you guys later. I hope that everybody watching this video is having themselves a great day, great night. Hey, there went my light. Perfect timing. And if you're not, certainly just try that all over again tomorrow. I will catch you later. Bye.